If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
If I can go anywhere, I would like to go to one. I would like to go travel to Greece, and I would like to travel to Africa.
I want to go to Japan.
I think I want to go to Rome.
If I could travel anywhere in the world, go to Italy because it's like a new place and it's like out of the U.S.
Okay, that's easy. I will go to Japan.
If I can go anywhere in the world, it would probably be Ireland.
If I could travel anywhere in the world, I would travel to Japan.
I would travel to London.
I think I would go to like Hawaii.
I would probably say Texas. I would say Africa.
I would travel to Japan.
Greece because I love the culture, I love the history of Greece and mythology, and Africa because to be honest, I'm just some black guy who never been to Africa. I hear people who went to Africa saying that once they touched down, they felt at home instantly.
I always want to see how the money works in Japan. So when I go there, I can actually get a better understanding of how they do things there.
Because I want to go to the Coliseum.
Because it's like a new place and it's like out of the U.S.
Reason being is because I watch a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling and I love Japan. I love the culture and it's very different from sports in the U.S.
I watch a lot of anime, so seeing how their life is really interesting to me and it's something I would like to experience.
Right. You realize anime people aren't real though, right? You won't see them there?
Yeah.
The reason being is first, my favorite singer is born from London.
Who's that?
Adele. I would love to ride one of their the Ferris wheel there.
So I put out a vlog a few weeks ago and I mentioned that I was going to Belize with my students this year after going to Costa Rica with them last year. And a lot of folks were asking how they could also take kids abroad, like how I go about doing that and what that process looks like. It's a pretty comprehensive take on how I do that. In short, I just knew that my family traveled a lot in the United States, mostly the East Coast growing up. We never went anywhere abroad. And in my 20s, I traveled to a few places. Like I'd gone to Puerto Rico, I had gone to Jamaica. I never had something that was like a cultural immersion too much. Until when I was in my mid-20s, my wife and I traveled to Africa. We stayed there for 2.5 months and I taught at an all-girls school there. My wife worked at a hospital as just an aide and fed children, and that was the first time in my life that I ever saw something completely different from what I had grown up with in New Jersey. We stayed at a place called Macha Hospital. It was known for its AIDS clinic, but it also was a hospital in general. It was the most middle of nowhere I'd ever been in my life. Flew to London, then we flew to Zambia, then we took a 6-hour car ride to the next town, which was Choma. And then from Choma, we drove 2 hours down the most pitted road I'd ever been on in my life to arrive in Macha. And that's where we spent the next 2.5 months, almost without leaving. We left town one time to go see a waterfall in Botswana. But that event literally changed my life. It changed the way that I saw the world. It made me thankful for things that I had never been thankful or never even thought about before. Like the fact that in the United States, I can travel from state to state without anyone stopping me, without anyone checking on my car. I could drive on a bus down the road without someone coming on with a machine gun to check out the situation and make sure everyone had their papers. I saw very, very poor people share with one another, care about each other, take care of one another in a sense of community that I've never forgotten. It was literally life-changing.
Beard.
You can't get too close on it. It looks better from far away. Who's that? And so as I became a teacher, I wanted to do that for my students as well. I wanted to figure out a way that I could take students abroad. And I've never really had the means or the courage until about 2 years ago. A speaker came to our school for Career Day and said that he took students abroad and they worked as part of this program. And when they were finished with the program, they would go abroad on a trip somewhere in the world. And he and I connected and we tried to make that happen. And for a number of reasons, that trip didn't work. But so instead of just staying local and working with someone local, I decided to go for a bigger company. And so I found EF Tours. Teachers might know them. They're the company that if you email them once, they'll email you for the rest of your life about traveling. But EF Tours had a lot to offer that I was interested in. And so before I even start, I'll let you know that this is not a paid endorsement. No one asked me to do this. I do get a kickback if someone signs up for a tour. But that's anyone. That's not even if you're doing a video. Like if you sign up for EF tours and then another teacher goes and they drop your name, you get money or points on your account. And for this trip, if anyone signs up, the link is going to be below. If anyone signs up, that money is going for this trip right to my students this time. So to help students that need a little bit of extra help paying for the trip, or that need a lot of help paying for the trip, that will go towards them. In short, last year we went to Costa Rica for 9 days with 11 students, and here's how that process looked and how it went down. First, you pick a place. We had already been in contact with EF, so we knew that we were going to use their program. They sent me a big old catalog, and they go all over the world. You can go from South Africa to China, Japan. You can stay in the States and go to like Arizona. You can go to Mexico. You can go to Hawaii. I mean, all over the world. We picked Costa Rica because it was really cost effective. It was about $2,600, I think, for my students for each one of them to go last year. And that covered our airfare, all of our food, all of our travel expenses. The only thing the students had to pay for was their luggage, and they needed to make sure that they paid for their passport. Some students brought spending money, and I encouraged them to buy souvenirs for the people that helped them. So if grandma gave you $100 towards your trip, make sure you buy grandma a little necklace or something like that, you know? And they brought money for to buy ice cream. But really, you needed very little money from day to day because you were full and you were busy all day. Costa Rica was also our pick because we wanted to match a sense of adventure with a trip that was a cultural immersion trip as well. And that we got both. So the boys went zip lining, whitewater rafting. They got to go snorkeling. We're out on an island. We came in. This is the mainland over here. We're on an island off the coast. We got to kayak at the base of a volcano. From the hood to the woods. We stayed on an island 2 hours down a river away from everything. A place called Tortuga Island, which is where sea turtles go to lay their eggs and then they go into the ocean. It was unbelievably amazing. There it is. It's the Costa Rican stoop. Just throwing trash at him earlier. So it's not that warm out, but Miles decided to get pushed into the pool by Eric Coates. I think they should fight it out now and have a battle and see who wins. Ready for swimming? Ready for swimming? Ready for going to the mall later? Or a funeral? Take a look. It's reading Rainbow. That's it. That was classic right there. And so the way that I did that was I wasn't sure if my students could afford it. I wasn't sure if anyone could afford it. I mean, it's a lot of money, $2,600 you're asking your students to pay. And that's regardless of where you teach, I think. But we held a meeting, sent notes home, said that we're having a meeting. We want to go to Costa Rica. We're trying to see if anybody's interested. We had a large number of parents show up to that meeting. And most of those parents weren't sure. Some were thrilled and had already decided that their kid was going to go. Some weren't sure. And the way that we tried to kind of help folks figure that out was we said, well, if this is successful, we'll go again next year. So if you want to wait, you can wait. You know, Costa Rica for us it's a first world country. So we weren't in any danger. There's a guide with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They speak the language. They lived in that community before your guides did. So there was very little risk in terms of we weren't going anywhere that was particularly dangerous or risky or scary or anything like that. So we have a meeting. We have parents that are interested. That meeting was in October of last year. We left in March. And those parents had that amount of time to pay that off. Teachers do not handle any money. It all goes right to EF. The parents set up an account. They can either send in a check or they can have direct deposit, and that pays towards their trip as the time goes on. The only things that I did find that were difficult were students that were telling me that they signed up for passports that hadn't. That becomes really, really important because Without a passport, you can't leave the country. If you pay $2,600 for your trip, but you still don't have your passport because you didn't go and get it on time, then you're in trouble. So if I were to do this again, like we're doing this year, there will be a cutoff date that you have to have your passport by a certain date if you want to go. That was it. And from there, we just kind of moved forward. We had a number of students sign up. Some of them stayed on board, some of them didn't, and for different reasons. Family had financial difficulty. Parents didn't like a kid's grades, so they cut them from the trip. We kept going forward. The next part was to try and figure out how certain students could fundraise. This is where things got a little bit funny. Kids came up with great ways to fundraise. We had kids that just sold K-Cups every morning. I had a student, Mark. Well, let me get Mark to tell you about this. Last year, to help raise money to go on your trip, Mark, can you tell everyone one of the ways you craftily came up with an idea to raise money?
It was raining, and it was a Beyonce concert. And so I told my dad, buy me ponchos. And so that after school, I went to the stadiums.
Ponchos from where?
Walmart.
Okay. Which cost about
$1 each.
$1 each. Okay, go.
But so when I went to stadiums, it started raining. So I started going out around the stadium, and I sold the ponchos for $5 each. And I made around $300 out of it. I still have over ponchos left, so I plan to use them for the Belize trip. So yeah.
It could rain before then.
Yeah.
And people don't want to get wet.
Yep.
You can be their savior.
Yep.
Genius, Mark. That's my favorite story to tell people.
Yeah.
Besides when my daughter was born. But second to my daughter being born, that's my favorite story to tell people. Good work. So that's how Mark made money for his trip. We had other kids who did potlucks at their churches, kids who, instead of Christmas presents, asked for money towards their trip. On my part, I got $500 from the school, and I was able to fund and build a store. Want to be in it with me? Come here. All right, so last year we had this idea to start the school store. This is what it is at its current state. But it lets the kids learn a lot of important stuff, like how to deal with money, customer service, teaches them how to flat stack products and how to make things look nice and neat and presentable. We don't sell anything that's remotely healthy, which is my only downfall and want for this. And Marcus is on the, he's gonna start selling hair care products. A very simple store. I just made it out of 3/4 inch plywood, tried to make it look like some kind of hipster bakery or something like that. And the students worked there every day after school. And when they worked there, they didn't make money for working there, but they got money towards their trips. It was so successful that students that weren't even going on the trip were just stoked to work at the store, learn how to front face things, learn how to organize stuff, learn how to deal with customers, learn how to make change. And this was a thing that we did every day after school to raise money for the trip. And we were able to raise a significant amount. We just split amongst the students, and everyone got a reduction in their cost. Or they got things paid for on the trip, or it helped with their luggage fees and stuff like that. So that was a really fun way to be able to do that. Short of that, everything else is really seamless. EF took care of everything. We didn't have to book a hotel. We didn't have to book a flight. We didn't have to organize anything. They took care of everything, and they were super professional about it. Really helpful. I wasn't nervous for a second about going on this trip because they handled it so well. I know there are other companies out there too. I can't really speak to them because I've only ever gone on one trip, and this is the company that I use. So that's why I speak so highly of them, and I don't really have an opinion about other companies. But my sense is, if you're sending children on trips and they either don't come back or they don't make it there, your company doesn't make money. So if you've been around for a long time and you keep sending students on trips, you probably have a pretty flawless record. I can't imagine as many people would sign up for your trip if you left a kid in a foreign country. Kevin! So then March slowly approaches. The only things that I'm making sure I have are everyone has a passport, and I have a copy of everyone's passport. Because if they get lost in another country, if they lose their passport, I need to have a copy of it to be able to expedite getting another passport. Otherwise, your student is stuck there, and one of the teachers has to stay with them. So we took 11 students, which meant that we took 2 chaperones. Myself and my friend Sarah went as well. She's also a teacher at the school. And what we did, our time frame was a little bit different. We went during the school year, meaning we didn't go during spring break, we didn't go during the summer. Because one of the things I noticed about students is, at our school, we would have students that would travel during the summer to Costa Rica or Japan or the Dominican Republic. They'd come back in September and you'd ask them, hey man, how was your summer? What'd you do? And your answer was always, nothing really. And then you find out, like, you went more places this summer than I've been in my life, and you said nothing? So we wanted the kids that had worked so hard to go on this trip to go in the middle of the year, so that when they were gone, when we all left, it left an impression on the school. Like, people noticed that we were gone. The students knew that we were gone. And then while we were in Costa Rica, we were live streaming on Instagram all the time. We were doing Facebook stories. We were creating all of this content while we were there, so the students at home could see what we were doing and see what they were missing out on and see how amazing this trip was. One of the biggest obstacles for the students to even get over about going on this trip was the price. Right? They think $2,600 is so much money. How could I ever pay for that? Or what I heard a lot of was, I'd rather my parents just give me that money. And no parent is gonna just say, oh, if you don't wanna go on the trip, here's $2,600, here's $3,000, here's $5,000. And because my students, most of them had not traveled abroad before, some kids had never even been on an airplane before, the trip blew their mind on a level that let everyone else know this year that this was worth the money that you're spending on it. So March comes, I nervously pack. I would suggest taking a larger suitcase than you need, because you need to bring extra stuff for kids that will forget stuff, like ponchos and first aid kits and sunscreen and all the other stuff that kids forget or they overlooked because they hadn't gone somewhere like this before. You as a teacher should have extras of all that stuff. Your suitcase sort of becomes like a mom's handbag. We just reach your hand down the bottom like Mary Poppins and just pull stuff out. Need a lamp? Want an umbrella? Have a mirror? So the day of the trip comes, I get to the airport extra early, and it is beyond exciting for everyone involved.
I am ecstatic. I feel sensational about this trip. I just want to see some sloths, some monkeys. I'm not afraid of nothing. Wait, maybe turtles. Turtles scare me a little bit. They get like, you know what I'm saying? They're like nip your Achilles heel, and you're gonna be done for it.
The students are excited, the parents are nervous, everyone's got suitcases that are like this big because it looks like they're going away for the rest of their lives. And we split the kids into two groups. So we had one group with Sarah and one group with me, and that was easier to get kids through customs. Because a lot of times at customs, you have to like take off your shoes, take off your belt, take off all your gear, open up your bag, take out your laptops, take out your camera gear. And it was a lot to be mindful of, but I did find that the more I told people I was taking students from West Philadelphia on a trip somewhere, the more grace they showed us and the kinder they were, because they thought, oh, this is a really wonderful experience for these boys. So we would get ushered through things a lot quicker because I would just drop that little bit of knowledge on them. And then that was it. Away we went. I have several different videos on this. I think I have 3 in total of most of our trip and what that looked like. What's up with that hair right there? And I can link them right up here. But in short, this was the takeaway from that trip. I had a number of students who, like, we got on the airplane and kids were really excited because they'd never been on an airplane before. We landed in Costa Rica and one of my students behind me got giddy with excitement looking out the window because he had never seen a palm tree in real life before. We got off the plane and kids were hugging one another and were super excited. And even though some of the hotels that we stayed in were extremely humble, they didn't have a lot of amenities. We took cold water showers. Your bed was essentially a mattress on a metal frame. Everything was clean, everything was nice. The families that owned these places were incredibly welcoming and kind, but it was just not what our students were used to. The 2 major takeaways that I took were, when we stuck it out all the way to the end, I had a number of students say that this trip literally changed their lives. They'd never seen anything like this. They'd never been anywhere like this. They couldn't wait to hear what the next trip was. I have seniors that went on the trip that are away at college now and have since contacted me to see if they could go on the trip again this year with us. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We're thinking about it and taking them as sort of ambassadors this year, as someone who's gone on the trip before and can kind of help us with the chaperoning responsibilities. And the other thing that I noticed being at an all-boys school, the level of brotherhood that was birthed out of that trip was incredible. I mean, kids that didn't know one another before we went on the trip, and you're in the trip and then you're there for 5 and 6 days and you've seen everyone for the last 6 days, 24 hours a day, and you're sleeping in the same rooms and using the same bathrooms. There's a sense of aggravation that just comes up because you're out of your normal zone. You're tired of someone snoring. But once the kids got past that, once we helped them to work past that, the brotherhood was undeniable. The connection between the boys was undeniable. Like kids hanging out that had never even seen people at school before. It was kind of like that ending scene from The Breakfast Club, but not at a rich school. It was in a country far, far away. So this year we're going to Belize. It's going to be a very similar trip. We're running it a different way. We're trying to take 18 students this year. We're being more choosy about who comes this year. Last year it was kind of like whoever could go, and we had a great experience, but I wanted to make sure that we're giving students an opportunity that either I think really could use it, or students that would be an asset on the trip. So we're not trying to take just good kids. You know, one of the things that didn't click in my head last year was the idea that like you can't be failing anything for the year if you want to go on the trip. You can't have major discipline issues if you want to go on the trip, because there will be times on the trip where even though you're with the students 24 hours a day, you go to bed at 10 o'clock and the students just happen to stay up until 3 in the morning, and even if it's just in their room, you're not watching them and you're not sure what's happening. And so you need to take kids that you can count on and that you can trust to be responsible in those moments. I really hope this helped. I know there's probably a gazillion other questions, and if you do have those, you could reach out. I'd be happy to try and help you with any of those. But EF answered a ton of those questions for me as well. If you just call them, you can set up a meeting. You can see if your community is actually interested in that. One of the things that I found was that even with some students of mine living in families where it was like single family homes and they were struggling to get by, or $2,600 wasn't a check that someone could just write off, those moms and grandmoms wanted to see those kids have the experiences that they had never had an opportunity to have. When we came back to the airport, I got hugs from every single mom. They were thrilled that we were able to do this with their kid and that they got this experience, and they couldn't wait to hear about it. So I'd say if you're watching this still and you're interested in taking a trip abroad, it's worth it to just have a meeting, to just pick the trip and call the company and have that conversation. And then maybe you find out that not enough students want to take that trip. Maybe you find out that it's not something that you can do this year. Maybe you do it in 2 years. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to plan that trip. And that's cool too. But I'm telling you, I can't imagine a reason that I would regret taking students abroad. I plan on doing this every year from now on, as long as nothing else kind of gets in the way, because it was so deeply impactful. And those students that I went away with are kids that I'll connect with for the rest of my life, because we've shared this experience together. So hope that helps, guys. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comment section below. Hit me up in an email. I'd be more than happy to share that information with you. That's it. Thanks, guys. Peace.